At a time when China is testing nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles that can be jettisoned into space and travel around the world to hit their target, and Russia is positioning its forces at the border with Ukraine, you might think the upper echelons of our British armed forces would have some very clear priorities set out for itself. Regrettably, this isn't so. The pronoun used in High Command has something else in mind. The top civil servant in the Ministry of Defence, Stephen Lovegrove, whose pronouns are he, him for anyone that's eager to know, states that supporting Black Lives Matter is not a political position whatsoever. And as has been explained on this channel many times before, you only have to look at the official Black Lives Matter accounts to find evidence of calls for open borders and a call to dismantle imperialism, capitalism, white supremacy and patriarchy, the watchwords of any Marxist. It's risible nonsense to suggest that this isn't a political movement, right? One that was engaged in, let's not forget, wanton acts of criminality. Then, earlier this week, the Centre for Army Leadership had invited Extinction Rebellion activists to lead their annual Leadership Lectures Day. The Army has since backtracked and uninvited the speaker, but they are, however, still to enjoy the delightful tidbits of The Guardian's Arwa Madawi. She's the author of Strong Female Lead, and she's the columnist responsible for Guardian headlines like "Men are less likely to wear masks, another sign that toxic masculinity kills," only to then reverse ferret and argue that shaming people who refuse to wear face masks isn't a good look. She clearly lacks any consistency or seriousness, so no wonder the upper command of our army is longing to hear her speak to our armed forces. She also wrote an op-ed on the BLM riots and asked if violence isn't the way to end racism in America, then what is? You couldn't make this up, folks. We've got a Conservative government with an 80-seat majority, and yet still, in what seems to be to each key strand of our state, we find pernicious elements of whackery and wokery distracting from what should be key priorities at times as perilous as these, especially for the armed forces, for God's sake. If the army falls to these elements of whackery and wokery, then what's going to be left? I'm Darren Grimes for a very depressed Reasoned UK.